Special needs students in primary and secondary schools on the rise. Dramatic testimonies at one food court fire public hearing. Good evening. Welcome to TVB News. The independent committee investigating the Taipo fire continued public hearing with dramatic testimonies on Thursday. Mimosa Ngai reports.
The public hearing resumed at Central City Gallery. Under the guidance of the committee's senior counsel, Victor Dawes, a couple of one food court residents spoke about proxy vote issues at the estate's owners' corporation meeting. Danny Fong, a Wang Tai House resident, claimed Packy Wong, a DAB district councillor and former consultant of the estate's owners' corporation, exerted influence in meetings. He said a group of people would accompany Wong to those meetings, who often threatened other attendees. At the meeting to decide on Prestige Construction and Engineering as a renovation contractor, Fong said he had witnessed Wong's associates lined up to receive proxy votes. The resident told the committee that one of Wong's people had contacted him on mobile, asking him to help Prestige become the contractor. Dawes questioned if he knew the person. Fong said he didn't. A Wanji House resident, Tai Chi Man, said Packy Wong had once collected a proxy vote from his mother. Tai went to Wong's associates after hearing the news to retrieve the vote. He managed to take the vote back despite obstructions in the process. Asked if he had anything else to say to the committee, Tai commented that Tony Choi, the former chairman of the estate's owners' corporation, changed after taking the post, turning a deaf ear to residents' concerns. Witness Ng Pui Kwan, a subcontractor who handled the external wall maintenance of Wang Chen House, Wang Tai House, and Wang Gin House, also testified. Ng told the committee that it's his first time using foam boards to seal the windows for protection before chiseling. He said the board stayed on afterward because his boss, a man surnamed Im, said so. Im owns the company Hoi Tak Construction Engineering. Ng said Prestige had instructed him to replace the fireproof windows at the backstairs with movable boards every 5 floors. Ng admitted that the replacement was not necessary but merely brought convenience to workers so they can get in and out. When Lee Shu-woon, the committee's counsel, asked Ng if he knew about the danger of removing the windows, the subcontractor said no. Zhang Wenhai, another subcontractor who conducted the window shielding at Wandao House, also told the committee that he was asked not to remove the boards. Lee Jung-ho lost his mother, brother, niece, and helper who lived on Wang Tai House 19th floor. Lee called his mother every 15 minutes on the day. By 9 p.m., Lee's family was still trapped in the flat. Lee rushed to a FSD's command center to report his family's situation. In return, the officer said his family had contacted the authorities 8 times. Lee recalled hearing the radio transmission from frontline firefighters that they had trouble reaching the 14th floor. Final witness Lee Guo-hong, who had read Prestige renovation contract, said the contractor would conduct work differently to what the document said. He said Prestige and the owners' corporation discussed the changes verbally. The committee also heard that Lee had made phone calls twice to the FSD in 2024 regarding concerns over foam boards and fire doors, but the government's barrister said authorities couldn't find a call record for foam boards. Mimosa Ngai, TVB News.
The number of students with special educational needs, or SEN, in public primary and secondary schools has surpassed 71,000 this academic year. It marks a 5.67% increase year-on-year. Notably, the number of secondary schools SEN students with mental health conditions has jumped by nearly 20%. Samantha Lee has the story.
In Hong Kong's education system, SEN refers to students with special education needs, ranging from learning difficulties to physical or mental health challenges, who require extra support to succeed in the classroom. According to the Education Bureau, there are nearly 33,000 SEN students in public primary schools in this school year. In secondary school, the figure stands at over 38,000, marking a 6.4% annual increase. Out of 9 SEN categories, students with special learning difficulties, ADHD, and autism make up the largest groups. However, students with mental health conditions saw the most dramatic surge. There are now 1,580 secondary school students in this category, a nearly 20% annual jump, and more than double the figure from 6 years ago. A secondary school principal, Wang Qinho, noted that many SEN students are being diagnosed at a primary level and stay in the mainstream schools as they grow up. He believes this growing trend is likely due to an increase in resources.
比較見得到嘅就係 ADHD 咧。
We are seeing more cases like ADHD in mainstream schools, said Wang. With better assessment tools available, the numbers are increasing as the system is now more efficient. Also, parents are becoming more accepting. They are more willing to let their children get tested and supported. In 2024-25, SEN students account for 13.6% in mainstream secondary schools and 12.9% for primary schools. Meanwhile, a psychologist warned that by the time a SEN student enters secondary school, the best chance for treatment may have already passed.
到中學嘅時候，好多嘢已經發展咗。
Scarlett Chui explained much of their development is already set by secondary schools. Just like other teenagers, SEN students also have to navigate puberty and deal with growing issues, on top of their special learning needs. She added when students show significant gaps in cognitive or social skills, parents should consider specialized schools so that their children can receive professional training and therapy. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
US President Donald Trump has said in a television interview that he thinks the war in Iran is very close to over. This as Pakistan's Prime Minister is on a regional tour of Middle East countries to try and mediate in negotiations between Iran and the United States. Meanwhile, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi said that China supports maintaining the momentum of the ceasefire and peace talks, which is in the interest of the Iranian people. Tracy Furness has more.
In an interview with Maria Bartiromo of Fox News Business, US President Donald Trump was optimistic the conflict between the US and Iran would soon end.
I think it's close to over, yeah. I mean, I view it as very close to over. You know what? If I pulled up stakes right now, it would take them 20 years to rebuild that country. And we're not finished. We'll see what happens. I think they want to make a deal very badly.
Visiting Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif was greeted by Mecca Deputy Governor Prince Saud bin Mishal. Later holding talks with Saudi officials, including Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Sharif's visit comes amid a regional tour as his country seeks to mediate in negotiations between Iran and the United States. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi commented on the talks, saying China supports maintaining momentum of a ceasefire and peace talks, which serves the interests of the Iranian people and reflects the shared expectations of countries in the region and the international community. This, as the White House said, the US and China corresponded at the highest level with regards to the Iran war.
Well, as you know, the president spoke about the letter with respect to he and the correspondence between he and President Xi. President Xi assured the president that they are not supplying Iran with weapons throughout this conflict, and that assurance was made to the president. It's obviously something the administration keeps close tabs on with respect to tariff.
Tracy Furness, TVB News.
US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warned on Wednesday that the US is preparing to ramp up economic pain on Iran. He said what is being prepared would be the financial equivalent of the bombing campaign. In addition, he said Washington has told countries that if you're buying Iranian oil, that if Iranian money is sitting in your banks, we are now willing to apply secondary sanctions. He said he has warned 2 Chinese banks.
I will tell you that 2 Chinese banks received letters from the U.S. Treasury. I'm not going to identify the banks, but we told them that if we can prove that there is Iranian money flowing through your accounts, then we are willing to put on secondary sanctions.
Responding to Bessent's sanction threats, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakun said on Thursday that China always opposes illegal unilateral sanctions that have no basis in international law and are without authorization of the UN Security Council. And still ahead. The Pope in Cameroon calls on government to break the chain of corruption. White House shows off plans for the Triumphal Arch. And hospital authority pledges to improve data security after an earlier large-scale leak. Welcome back. Pope Leo XIV has arrived in the Central African nation of Cameroon, where he delivered a masterclass on wielding authority legitimately to President Paul Biya, who consolidated his 4-decade grip on power with a contested election last year that gave him an 8th term in office. Tracy Furness has more.
On arriving in Cameroon, the Pope was greeted by the country's Prime Minister Joseph Dion Ngute. People lined the streets waving as the Pope's motorcade went by on its way to the presidential palace, where Cameroon's President Paul Biya greeted him. The Vatican had said that fighting corruption in the mineral-rich Central African country would be one of the themes of Leo's visit, and the American Pope did not hold back in addressing Biya and government authorities in his arrival address at the presidential palace. He said, in order for peace and justice to prevail, the chains of corruption which disfigure authority and strip it of its credibility must be broken. Hearts must be set free from idolatrous thirst for profit. True profit comes from integral human development, that is, the balanced growth of all the aspects that make life on this earth a blessing. On the first day of his trip, Pope Leo visited a children's orphanage. Leo has 2 major events in Cameroon, with the highlight a peace meeting on Thursday in the country's northwest city of Bamenda, which has been plagued by separatist violence. English-speaking separatists launched a rebellion in 2017 with the stated goal of breaking away from Cameroon's French-speaking majority and establishing an independent state. The conflict has killed more than 6,000 people and displaced over 600,000 others, according to think tank the International Crisis Group. On the eve of the Pope's arrival, the English-speaking separatists announced a 3-day pause in fighting to allow safe travel for his visit. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
US President Donald Trump's design for a triumphal arch he once built at an entrance to the US Capitol is coming before a key federal agency for review and possible vote to approve it. The arch would stand 76.2 meters from its base to a torch held aloft by the Lady Liberty-like figure atop the structure. The figure would be flanked atop by 2 eagles and guarded at the base by 4 lions, all gilded. The structure would dwarf the Lincoln Memorial, which stands at 30.2 meters tall. Opponents filed a lawsuit seeking to block planning and construction of the arch. Still, White House Press Secretary argued the arch is a project all Americans of all political persuasions can support ahead of the 250th anniversary of the U.S.'s independence.
Beginning construction this year on the architectural arc is a fitting way to commemorate the 250th anniversary of American independence. Great nations build beautiful structures that cultivate national pride and love of country, and this triumphal arc should be a project that all Americans of all political persuasions can support, because it's a monument for every American to celebrate 250 years of our nation's proud history. And again, the plans for this will be submitted tomorrow. We'll have many more announcements with respect to our 250th anniversary in the coming months as we look forward to the 4th of July.
Foreign Ministry on Thursday issued a notice warning citizens of security risks traveling to the United States and advised citizens not to enter through Seattle's airport. The ministry said recently about 20 Chinese scholars traveled to the U.S. and were subjected to unreasonable questioning by U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers at the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. The scholars held valid U.S. visas. The notice stated that Chinese nationals planning trips to the U.S. should strengthen their awareness, avoid entering through this airport, and make all necessary preparations, citing repeated incidents of malicious questions and harassments against Chinese scholars. The BBC in the UK said on Wednesday that it plans to cut up to 2,000 jobs to save 10% of its annual budget over the next 2 years. The layoffs announced during a call with staff are the largest in more than a decade at the British broadcaster. Officials cite inflation, pressures to license fee and commercial income, as well as a turbulent global economy as the reasons for the reductions. The BBC is funded by an annual license fee, which recently rose to £180, paid by all UK households who watch live TV or any BBC content. The Labour government has vowed to ensure the BBC has sustainable and fair funding, but has not ruled out replacing the license fee with another funding model. Regarding the data breach involving more than 50,000 patients at United Christian Hospital, the hospital authority is considering suspending the contractor's eligibility to bid on future projects until the investigation is complete. The HA also stressed that the data breach occurred in the peripheral system, not the central system that holds all patients' records. Samantha Lee has more.
The probe on the large-scale data leak is still ongoing. So far, a system developer has been arrested for allegedly downloading patient data without authorization. In response to public concern over whether its cybersecurity measures are adequate, the hospital authority said they have stepped up efforts to ensure sensitive data is well protected.
Immediately following the incidents, we have tightened the access of all vendors to all vendor-supplied systems. The second thing that we did is to have an emergency security scan and review of our systems to make sure that we have no vulnerabilities and there are no more sort of security risks at the moment. And the third thing that we did is we stepped up our 7x24 Security Operations Center surveillance to make sure that we will have an early detection of any anomalies or risk of data exposure.
Samantha Lee, TVB News.
The Ombudsman's office has conducted an investigation into the government's work in combating cruelty to animals. The office made 45 improvement suggestions to the government. The investigation focuses on the work of the Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department on targeting animal cruelty, including the department's protective measures and regulation of animal traps. The Ombudsman said some cases have shown that the department failed to check on the abused animals, while they used information available at the time to assess whether there was animal cruelty. The office has asked the AFCD to increase its effort in detecting and removing illegally deployed animal traps at an early stage through regular patrols. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.